Right, today,
Yeah. Hopefully everyone's just getting warmed up.
that's it. Still making their cup of tea.
That's it. Primary, secondary treatments, dynamic visual obstructions. Very good. Very good.
A few more coming through.
Visual continuity. Sharrows. Wonderful. All right. I might leave it there. Feel free to keep jotting down some answers. I'll share my screen. As I mentioned, mustaches on presenters. Yes, that is a prerequisite. Working at Safe System Solutions. Sharrows happen to be on my list, so let's give a prize out to whoever mentioned Sharrows. The primary and secondary treatments. Sorry, the dynamic visual obstructions as well. Look, none of these topics were meant to suggest priority or things that you need to remember. These were just randomly selected, but I'm glad to see that we've got, we've managed to teach some new things over the course of these last couple of weeks. So that's good to hear. Today's topic is going to be all about what are you going to do with your accreditation and what that potentially means. So we've broken this last module up into a little bit of theory, a little bit of understanding, and we'll go through some slides. And then the second half of this module will be actually breaking you out into little groups and conducting a little exercise. So there's going to be a bit about 50-50. So I'm not going to be speaking the whole day. I'll actually invite you to help join in the discussion. We'll get stuck into the accreditation. So becoming a road safety auditor and being acknowledged as that. And one of my favorite topics to cover is the legal implications of that, which I might just get stuck right into. I find this really interesting. So possible legal issues. I'll start with this disclaimer, being I have an engineering degree. I do not have a law degree, and I'm not a practicing lawyer. So if you are within a situation that you require legal advice, please do not take these slides or what I'm about to provide to you as any type of legal advice. It is just a reflection of what I've seen in industry. Every now and then road safety audits are called into the court system. And we tend to keep across those kind of cases and how they play out and how lawyers use them. So I just wanted to share those findings that we've kind of noted over the years. So it's an interesting space. The first perspective I want to talk about is if you individually are conducting the audit, so possible issues for the auditor, the person conducting the audit. One issue that does pop up is an audit that is client focused. And I think the best way to describe this one would be if we considered a developer. I use the example of a developer because they tend to have not necessarily a transport background or a road safety background. The developer's goal is to build whatever they want on the adjacent land and then, maintain access from the local road network. That's their primary goal, and just keep developing more and more, and obviously very concerned about finances and things like that. So they're not likely to be sitting in road safety audit training courses, for instance. Anywho, imagine we had a developer who was looking to build, I don't know, we'll just say 60 paint factories all over the country. And they acknowledged that as part of all their permits to be able to undertake any work and to be able to get access to the arterial road network or the local road network, they do require permits from the road controlling authority. As part of the permit process, they're required to undertake a road safety audit. So there would be some type of requirement there that they need to go out and get an RSA done. A client then may say to a prospective road safety auditor, say they're getting the first site all drawn up and getting ready to go. They may go to a prospective auditor and be like, here's the first site. If you make this easy for me and make sure there's nothing in there that is a high risk that I'm going to have to act on, there's about another 60 sites I'll be able to give you. So when you put it like that, you can see the clear evidence of there being, a conflict of interest there, and an auditor not necessarily acting in an independent manner. They could be potentially leveraged by that information. So that's a situation where you don't want to find yourself in. Okay, so one, audits that are client focused, and that was quite an extreme case, but there are examples of more minor instances where clients have asked auditors, hey, please don't consider that, or please limit your scope to only this section because I can't do anything about that. And if it's still within the scope of the projects, it should still be within the remit of an auditor. An inadequate brief. So if you are an auditor and you receive a request for quote from your clients and it is not explicit exactly what you're auditing, an example of that could be you might get an email saying, can you please audit the outskirts of Toowoomba? And you may assume where the outskirts of Toowoomba are, but you may assume incorrectly. And as soon as you assume, you've identified your own scope, you've then taken on that risk and saying, well, this is the brief that I've been given and this is what I'm going to deliver. How that could actually play out in a court system would be a client may have said, like, I just wanted this RSA done. I didn't really care about the brief, so that's why I've just given it a one sentence and then sent it off and I got the report and then put it in my drawer and that was it. If something were to happen there would be onus on the auditor to have said, hey, exactly where is this site? What exactly is the scope of the project? Why am I looking at the outskirts of Toowoomba? So whilst there is obviously a responsibility on the client's behalf to write a solid project brief, it's important as auditors as well that you are completely aware of the scope of your project. Misleading qualifications or experience, I mean, that's pertinent to any industry. You can't go around saying that you're a microbiologist if you have never studied that field. Same if you're within a road safety audit team, you can't then be signing off as a road safety auditor if you haven't got the relevant qualifications. Not following correct process. This one gets a little bit sticky because within the Austroads guide to conducting or implementing a road safety audit, certainly encourages both day and night inspections. So that's what we would consider industry standard. That's what you'd be doing. However, there are instances where clients may dictate no night inspection is required. An example of that would be if you're auditing a rural intersection in the middle of nowhere and you know there's no lighting there and the client doesn't see that there'll be any benefit in you going out there and taking a photo in the pitch black conditions. They may, as part of their project brief, say a day inspection is only required. So when a client gives you that brief, you are allowed to depart from what would be considered industry practice. However, if you as the auditor made that call without having that within writing from the clients, once again, you are assuming that responsibility. So you've made the choice to depart from the relevant guidelines. So if it's not stipulated anywhere, then you would just have to assume day and night inspections are required. Similar kind of example of following your own quality processes. So if you're working within, an LGA or within a consultancy, you'll likely have a quality management system or equivalent ways that reports gets, signed off, reviewed, make sure that they're all appropriate before being submitted. And if there isn't any of that quality process in place, then there's once again a risk for an auditor to just, use their own understanding of road safety and start dishing out reports that may not necessarily reflect what is current standards. The quality processes also refers to when we have LGAs that they're not 100% sure when a road safety audit should be conducted or how often it should be conducted. So for instance, if it's a $5,000 job just to fix up some curb and channel and install a new pram crossing, for instance, would that require a road safety audit versus if it's a new roundabout going in that is on the arterial network? Would that require a road safety audit? So one of the things that is strongly recommended is whether if you are in a road controlling authority position, so if you're in an LGA or a state government, to reflect on if you've got an existing policy within this space. Lots of LGAs do. And if not, writing one in. It doesn't have to be incredibly long. It just needs to stipulate when you would conduct road safety audits. Within the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Audits, implementing them, there is an actual template of what that policy could look like. And it's basically just linked to the level of investment for the capital infrastructure. So, if it's going to be a $2 million job, you're probably going to have RSAs done at concept level, detail, post-construction, pre-opening, etc. If it's just a smaller job, then you might do one at concept, but you may not have to do one at all. So just having that policy ensures that you've got a quality process in place to ensure that there's consistency. One thing that lawyers would love to argue within court would be, why did this project that's, potentially in the exact same LGA, similar price, similar kind of scope of works, why did one of those projects have a road safety audit conducted and the other one didn't? The answer could be the project manager for the first project had been to this course or a similar course and was completely conversant with what road safety auditing is and included that within the scope when the project went out to tender, versus another project manager who's not conversant with this topic and is unaware of the implications of that. Having that kind of two different approaches is an absolute field day for lawyers, and they will be very, be able to drag that through the courts. So while I'm talking about this, I should probably also clarify that it's very unlikely that it will be you as an individual that have to, argue for or against a road safety audit report that you've completed. It'd be more likely your organization, so, directors or chief executives, etc. Those people technically hold the accountability, but it still obviously reflects and will impact on your personal life if you are not, following in accordance with this rough guidance that I'm giving you now. The last comment that I'm just going to mention for things to consider as an auditor's perspective is whether a reasonable assessment has been made. And the term reasonable is used quite openly and quite often within the legal sphere. And the way that they define it is basically, would your colleagues and peers have made a similar recommendation? Would they have picked up on similar risks? So it can be a little bit vague there, but there is an opportunity there for lawyers to then engage other road safety auditors to audit the exact same design that you've been through, for instance, to check whether or not particular issues have been picked up. And I don't want you to get too stressed being like, does that mean I have to pick up on, if I'm working with a colleague and they've picked up on 10 issues on this design and I've only picked up on 9, does that mean I'm not a good auditor or something like that? That's not really the message of that. It's about following the process, acknowledging that you may have specific skills with one aspect of the road design. So for instance, cycling for me is something that I regularly audit, whereas the technical drainage and how that interacts with the carriageway is not something that I'm particularly confident with, and something that I would likely get a colleague to help me out with. So acknowledging your own, I suppose, strengths within the space is also an important thing to consider. Just noticing a question there in the chat: is independent road safety audit needed for pedestrian refuge island curb outstands? Once again, I'll just go back to that suggestion of creating your own policy within an LGA or a state government to determine that, because it's difficult to put a blanket yes or no as just a general treatment. Because if there was a pedestrian refuge island or curb outstands in a very rural area that's servicing maybe a school, for instance, but the school kids don't actually use that, they get dropped off at the school and there's not much use there at the moment. The reason I say that is because I'm currently doing a job that is exactly that situation. For that environment, I wouldn't necessarily say a road safety audit would be required. However, if it was urban, lots of people using it, lots of traffic, etc., you may be looking at maybe good to implement the road safety audit. So probably best just to refer to if you've got your own individual policies in that spot. Possible issues with conducting road safety audits, this time on the client side of things. So before we had the auditor side of things. Now, if you're actually issuing any request for quotes to go out and do RSAs, here's that topic again of ensuring that it's not an inadequate brief, ensuring that there is a means to clearly define the project scope. I described the importance of that prior, so I won't go on about that one. Requesting recommendations, so actually asking your auditor to provide recommendations to mitigate the risks is important. This one here is really critical. What we don't want road safety audits to be is just another document that needs to get filled in and signed off, and then a milestone along the way that then gets left in a drawer somewhere. A road safety audit report will include recommendations from the auditor, and as part of that, it is the responsibility of the clients to review those recommendations and consider implementing them as part of their project. It's not a requirement to across the board accept them all. That's not what a road safety audit is for. So as an example, a road safety auditor may suggest, or suggest installing things that are way outside the budget of the project's, capabilities. But it's still relevant for them to be able to suggest that, because it could be something that genuinely will reduce the risk of death or serious injury. So it is not the client's responsibility to across the board just accept everything the auditor has said. However, they do need to consider everything. So there's usually within audit reports very distinct sections to say, here's the recommendation, and then here is for you as the clients. What do you think about that? Do you accept or do you reject it? And if so, why? So just providing that nice, clear accountability. So it's not just a report that's been done for the hell of it, but there is an actual means to close out particular risks. And, even if items are rejected, there's the possibility to say, unable to install this interchange as recommended due to financial constraints. However, we will look to investing in the next financial year $5 million to conduct a business case, just as an example. So there's a possibility to, aim for something a little further along the line. Means of prioritization within the road safety audit report, as you would be familiar with now, you're able to assign a level of risk associated with your different audit findings. That then can feed into your recommended prioritized investment for the client. So that's pretty handy. So what I mean by that is if you've done an audit report and you've got half a dozen low audit findings, half a dozen median, and you've got 2 catastrophic, very high. If I was the clients, the ones that I would be focused on are usually the ones in bright red that are just glaring at you. The ones with the most impacts for severity and likelihood, the ones that are coming out as catastrophic, very high. So they give you almost a means to prioritize these things, because it gives you a very clear idea of, if you are going to be investing in changes, where they should occur. So a very clear way to be doing those things. The final little topic that we'll cover in this session is, once again, the reasonable process, but from the client's perspective. And once again, I'll use the developer as an example. It would be easy as a developer to give the road safety auditor the plans that they need to audit, and that's it, with no additional context. However, as a developer, you may be aware of other site issues. An example could be, say I'll just keep the paint warehouse. I don't know why I thought paint warehouse, but say you're building that and it's in a semi-rural environment and there's no designated bus stop or anything. But you know how sometimes you're in those semi-rural environments or rural environments and there's just a random bus stop that kids use, and there's no actual shelter. There may not be a bus stop sign or anything there, but there are school children that use that particular corner to then get a lift to go into their school and get dropped off. If you as a developer were aware of that arrangement and did not share that with your road safety auditor team, you could be seen as deliberately withholding information that would impact a road safety audit. So that's another instance where we've got this, what would be considered reasonable process, and that is sharing all pertinent material to your road safety audit team. And as a senior road safety auditor, I'm very, very used to seeing a lot more information than I necessarily need to see, but I would still much prefer that than having missed out on detail that could have been useful as part of the audits that I'm undertaking. Okay, just got a question there from Sam. I've been told that you can't provide recommendations in an RSA, only identify the issues and the client responds to them. Is that right? So Sam, if I'm not mistaken, are you within New South Wales? Because I believe that is practice within New South Wales. Within Victoria and Queensland, SA, Tas, possibly WA, we have risks, level of risk, recommendations. New South Wales, you just do risk, level of risk, and then it's up to the client to determine what the recommendations are. I have opinions on that, but I might save that for another day. But yeah, just a different way of operating that RSA model there. Okay, so that's it for the legal questions. We'll move on to the accreditation process. I'll just check in with Marissa that I haven't missed anything or covered everything so far.
No, I haven't missed anything. Max, good to keep on going.
Okay. So, at the completion of this course, you will have a certificate, which will give you, I suppose, the next step into becoming an accredited road safety auditor. There's a few different states and territories across Australia that acknowledge this, and they have like a formal register where they keep all their road safety auditors that are able to conduct work within their jurisdictions. The first one I'll get started on is Victoria. So road safety auditor, you don't actually need any prior experience. So this could be the very first course that you sit, and then you're basically ready to get started within road safety auditing. And I've got a little story about that, so I won't go into too much detail now. But you do have to demonstrate how you've got road design, traffic management, traffic experience, road safety engineering, road user behavior, etc. Likely you could demonstrate that through, once again, attendance through these courses or the field of work that you are in, but you don't actually need to have a minimum amount of professional experience before getting the first status, which is a road safety auditor. Compare that to Queensland, where you need a minimum of 5 years to become a road safety auditor. And South Australia has a statement in there that it's required to have a level of experience, but doesn't actually stipulate the number of years. In order to graduate from a road safety auditor to a senior road safety auditor, what tends to be standard across the different jurisdictions is a minimum of 5 audits, including 3 at design stages. So you do need to have actually completed road safety audits, and across the board, they ask for evidence of that. So you need to actually keep records of the road safety audits you've completed. It needs to have your name on there, it needs to have your signature on there. They will check all those things. And then in order to stay up to date and demonstrate that you're still using your skill set, you have to maintain your accreditation status. Within Victoria, within the jurisdictions that we're looking at here, you've got to give them an annual road safety audit. The way that it works within Victoria is there is a website that is managed by ARB. They just have this ginormous list of all the road safety auditors that can conduct work within Victoria. They keep a record of when the last audit was. When you're coming up to that 12-month mark, they send you out an automated message and say you need to update your records. You need to upload a new road safety audit report. We'll review it, and then you'll be good for another 12 months. When I say they'll review it, they don't actually review your audit findings and the way you've risk rated things and stuff like that. They just check that you've been part of a road safety audit. Okay. Here's the current lists that you will be able to join once you've completed your certificates for this course. So Victoria is vrsa.com.au. South Australia, New South Wales and Queensland, you'll be able to get on their registers. You just need to provide things like your CV and yeah, just an example of any work that you've done within this space. You need to list what type of work that you're interested in getting involved in. I've just got a question there. What about Tasmania? Tassie doesn't have a separate list, but they tend to just use Victoria's. So if you're on Victoria's list, you can generally do work in Tas. Just with regards to the level of accreditation, so as mentioned before, generally it's a 5-year minimum experience for a senior road safety auditor, but depend on which jurisdiction you're working within. So as I touched on previously, Victoria had this approach to first get stuck into road safety auditing. You don't require multiple years experience. Victoria, at the time of getting the road safety audit register up and running about 15 years ago, they were like, we just want people to go to these courses to understand road safety risks. We want them to, become accredited so that they feel confident that they've got these skills, and then to implement them within their projects, which is why it is relatively lax to get on Victoria's. So if you want to get onto any register, go for Victoria's. It's the easiest one. So that was one side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum is Western Australia's, which you may have noticed I didn't cover off in that table. I am not on the register for Western Australia because it is too much of a hassle. They require that you've attended not only sessions like this, which are dedicated to obviously conducting road safety audits, they also require online training, which is quite extensive. That covers a lot of the same topics as well. Requires you to do sit tests and things like that. And then there's also extra maintenance things as well within Western Australia. So Western Australia went with a different approach where they were like, we really just want the best of the best to be able to conduct road safety audits and call themselves a road safety auditor. So we're going to actually make it pretty hard to get on there. It's up to you which school of thought you think works better, whether it's Victoria just saying, if you've got experience within this space and you want to give it a go, give it a go. You do always have to do these in teams, and there always has to be a senior road safety auditor. So that somewhat mitigates the risk of, just a junior road safety auditor saying things that perhaps are not as risky as they could be, or missing out on things, for instance. You could also go with the approach of, being quite strict and saying we only want, experts within that field to have that accreditation. And just as an example of one of the disadvantages of Western Australian model is there is currently a significant market for road safety auditors because it is so challenging to get onto. So there is a lack of supply, but a strong demand. And the way that actually plays out is there's actually projects that don't get road safety audited because it's too hard to get a road safety auditor. Our principal engineer, Ken Beard, regularly used to fly over to Western Australia, charge a couple nights accommodation, you get had to hire a vehicle, get all that paid for as well. All the sundries, all the meal allowances, plus his time, all of that covered, because he could deliver a road safety audit within 3 weeks from initiation, versus WA going out to the existing local network that are also on the RSA register, but don't have the capacity. So they could be saying, yeah, I can do the job, but it'll be 3 months. And the prices are about the same as well. So it's not exactly a fantastic environment to have set up such stringent, regulations to get on the register, but I suppose that's a little bit open to interpretation. People from WA could suggest that that's working exactly as intended. So I guess it goes without saying, we do not have one universal register, which all jurisdictions have agreed to. There is an Austroads project on at the moment that is trying to decipher or deliver exactly that. That's trying to get one road safety auditor register. But what that actually means is getting people from Victoria to agree with people from WA saying that this is the best system. No, this is the best system. So I haven't got my hopes up too high to see that anytime soon. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Road safety auditor. So to get that accreditation, you do require a certificate, which is, this course, which you'll receive at the end of completion of all your coursework. Some experience in road safety engineering, road design, traffic management, user behavior. Senior road safety auditor, still need the course certificate. You need 5 years minimum and also 5 RSAs. So just what I described before. As I mentioned, Victoria is the easiest, so I recommend signing up to this one upon completion, vrsa.com.au. You will get directed to a page that looks like this. So as I mentioned, this is managed by ARB. This disclaimer says that ARB is basically just the conduit here. It does not actually, say any of these auditors are going to do an exemplary job or be completely in adherence to Austroads guides or your jurisdictional guides. So it's basically just like a get out of jail free, just saying like, hey, everyone on this list has met the competency requirements that Vic Roads has stipulated. However, we're not vouching for them whatsoever. Which is always a fun way to start the conversation. If you are interested, you just click on agree to continue, and on the left-hand side there's register for auditor accreditation. We'll take you to this screen here. The top little point there is if you're interested in registering for road safety auditor, which everyone here would be, and the second option there is senior road safety auditor. Unless you're doing a refresher course here, in which case register for senior road safety auditor. Then it's just a matter of filling out all your details. You do have the ability to hide information if you don't want the public seeing, your email address or phone number, etc. And just make sure you tick those relevant boxes. You need to state exactly which course that you have attended and when. And that is then confirmed by the certificate that you give them. Once you've achieved all of that, you're able to kind of log in. It generally takes a few days, maybe 5 business days for ARB to process it and check it all, and they'll send you out an email, and you'll be able to log on to the system. The system has a capability of being able to search for auditors. So if you're within the client space and interested in getting auditors to conduct work within your area, it's a pretty useful tool to be able to use. So you can search for an auditor. Obviously, you can search just based on if you know the individual. For instance, if you want to check that they have achieved their accreditation or which company that they work for. But another means you can just search for is you can click on what stage of the project it is. So if it's a existing conditions audit that's got to do with cycling, you could just tick that one box there. Then it will give you a list of all the auditors that have also ticked that box. The little sneaky caveat I'll say there is, as you're going through this system, the auditor themselves evaluate themselves. So basically, you may get incredibly confident people who just tick across the board and say, yep, I can do all those stage audits. I know everything about motorcycles. I know everything about freeways, etc. Give me the job. That'd be great. So there's a little bit of, there's a potential risk there of just getting people that are incredibly confident in their abilities, but not necessarily able to demonstrate that, is the politest way I can think of saying that. So say you've just searched for an auditor and you just wanted a freeways job. It might look like something like this. Everyone thinks they can do freeways. There's Ken Beer down there. If you were interested in getting more information about a particular auditor, you're able to just click on their name. It's going to confirm for you that they're active. You want to make sure that's the case. Otherwise, your road safety audit may not be following that quality process that we talked about before. Give you information about their contact details, etc. This is just the CV that Ken had to upload it at the time to demonstrate that he's had road safety experience, to demonstrate those 5 years. This is how Ken self-evaluated his skill set. So worksite traffic management plans, Ken has not ticked those ones because doesn't feel like he's an expert in providing advice within that space. And the other is also not ticked. Little fun facts about other. As I mentioned, this was created 15 years ago or something like that, maybe even longer. And the other was put there as a placeholder because they were expecting connected autonomous vehicles, driverless cars kind of thing. That would be the big thing. And we're going to be doing audits just based around that particular topic. So it's kind of there as a placeholder to be like, one day we're going to use that. And, and we've got it set up. So they're really forward planning, but we're still waiting on them to use that. So you can't actually tick yourself for other because it's doesn't refer to anything at the moment. You're also able to say which regions of the state you would be interested in conducting RSAs. So if you only want to work, in Mildura in the northern sections, then you just be able to click on that. This is, once again, what I was talking about is just having to continually maintain your auditor status and every year having to provide an updated road safety audit report to demonstrate that you are still using your skill set. And that was the course that Ken attended to achieve the RSA initially. So it also saves the certificate that you were provided. Right. South Australia, similar process. I would also recommend going on South Australia's list, relatively easy too. So you could just go on to, it's called DIT now, not BPTIT, but that's okay. There's just some basic template forms that you fill in and then you send it back. And then they have a register, which is actually a PDF. And then I'm not sure how often that PDF gets updated, but they basically just re-upload the same document. So with Victoria's, it's all kind of web-based and it's instantaneous, whereas South Australia has a bit more manual labour with it. PMR is pretty similar to SA as well. So they list all their auditors online with all their contact details, but the actual application is form-based. Finally, in New South Wales, we recently only got approved as one of their courses that can be used for their road safety audit course, even though we've run this training for over 10 years and we have accredited hundreds and hundreds of auditors, but it was only recently that we got on their certified providers, so that's exciting. So if you're within the New South Wales, you are also able to use this course completion to get yourself accredited. I don't know why that's there again, but that was all I had for the actual accreditation and the legal stuff. Did anyone have any questions on that? Or are we happy to get stuck into our next section, which will just be about the exercise that we've got planned for today? Right. Sounds like we're all good, which is good to hear.
There's no questions pending at the moment, Max, so we could probably move on.
Fabulous. I'll get cracking. I'll just get my screens get set up. I've got another little presentation. So we'll go through this. I'll just give myself like 5 minutes to do this, then we'll have a break, and then we'll get stuck into the exercise. So I'll just explain everything first. Yeah, screen. Alrighty. So the exercise for today is actually going to be auditing a real design, not something that we've fabricated or made for the purpose of this training. It is a real design. And looks something like this, one I prepared earlier. Apologies for anyone that's colorblind, but the green line work that you can see on this design is existing conditions, and the solid black line marking is what is being proposed. So you may have noticed within the middle of this plan here, it's like an oblong green shape. It's a roundabout, a very funny looking roundabout. And it's being proposed to remove this roundabout and install signalized intersection. So that's the general overview of what this project is asking. We've also got a few additional sheets just in case you want to see how things are looking leading up to the intersection. So you can just refer to those sheet numbers if you're of interest. We've also provided this street view access so you can get a little taste of what the existing conditions look like. So I'll just reiterate, the existing conditions, it is still currently a roundabout. The design you're looking at is shifting that to a signalized intersection. This sheet here has got a number of different cameras of which you can just click on. I'm just going to click on number 5. And it'll open up a YouTube link that is video footage of that exact location. And it's also 360 degrees. So if you can just drag your cursor around, you'll be able to have a look around and see how this site looks from that perspective. So you can flick yourself around there and have a look. Might help you just appreciate the risks that are currently there. But what we will be doing, this exercise, is all about writing up an audit finding for the design. So we're not writing up an audit finding for the existing conditions. We're writing up a risk based on the design. So all of your findings should be based on the image that I showed first, which look like this. The way that we're going to set up this next session is we're going to break this group up into 4 breakout rooms. And each of the rooms will need to decide on a scribe, so someone that will write up the finding, and also a presenter, someone who, once the session has completed, they can come back to this main group and present whatever audit finding you've come up with. We can get stuck into that in about 5 minutes time. So let's just say we'll give a break of 5 minutes, go grab yourself a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, go have a stretch. And in 5 minutes time, I'll reiterate the task or the exercise that we'll be doing. And then we can split you all up into your breakout rooms. So I'll see you all soon. I want to reiterate this afternoon's little exercise. So we are going to split you up into little breakout rooms where you can, introduce yourself to your fellow peers and participants in today's session. And we want you to review this design that's up on the screen. Marissa has also put it up in the chat, so you'll just be able to access it all pretty conveniently. Maybe one person within the group kind of shares their screen, and then you can all talk to one screen. And then you also need to nominate someone to write the audit finding up. So we want to see a well-written audit finding. Just aim for one. We don't need to see all the issues within this site. Would much rather just see one really well-written, well-thought-out audit finding. assign a level of risk. So, the likelihood, the severity, and the overall level of risk. And if you also have time, please pop in a recommendation. What can we do to mitigate that risk? Hopefully that's all clear. I will be popping into the various little groups along the way. I've allocated about 20 minutes to conduct this exercise. So it is, it's not a lot of time. So you probably need to get stuck into it. But if you are having any issues, just know I'll be coming through there and can help you out with all of that. So Marissa, are you okay to drop everyone into a new little breakout room? You're on mute, Marissa. Oh, still on mute there, Marissa, if that's...
Sorry. Got it. All right. I'm creating them as we speak. And all right, and that will pop up on your screen now. It'll be yourselves and around 6, 7, 8 other people. And let's get that going.
Excellent. All right, happy auditing, everyone.